Hi everyone, welcome to our technical takeoff session. We're here to talk to you about how to increase the productivity of part-time and shift workers with Windows 365. But before we get started, let's do a quick introduction. My name is Sam Tulamat and I'm a product manager on the Windows 365 team, and I am joined here today by my colleague Colby. Colby, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I'm Colby Hanley and I'm also a product manager on the Windows 365 team based out of San Francisco.
So before we dive right into our content for today, let me give you a quick overview of the agenda. You might be wondering, how is Windows 365 relevant for shift and part-time workers? To answer that question, we're going to start with a brief overview of what we see as some key work trends that organizations are observing with their workers that are part-time as well as shift workers, and some of the challenges and opportunities that we see as a result. From there, I'm going to introduce you briefly to how Windows 365 as a product is aiming to empower shift and part-time workers. And then I'll share with you more about a licensing model that we are introducing to help organizations cater to these workers. At that point, Colby and I will move to more hands-on demos, and we'll show you more in details what the admin and end user experience for Windows 365 looks like. And we'll conclude our session with summarizing some of the key benefits that we're targeting for your organization. So as we talked about earlier, one of the things that we have started seeing is a key trend that more jobs across all industries are trying to move into remote and hybrid work. Now that's happened and accelerated throughout the pandemic, and it used to be a trend that we see primarily with information workers. But more and more, we're seeing that even part-time and shift workers, such as frontline workers who work directly with customers across many industries, are actually needing to work either from the office or at home, remote, in a hybrid fashion, basically. And because of that, that is posing a real challenge for many organizations, because part-time and shift workers make up the majority of the workforce at almost 75%. And typically, they don't have access to devices during their work hours. And so that's causing a significant challenge and also posing a real opportunity where companies are looking to enable these workers to be more productive and more happy at their work. And to be able to do that, more often than not, companies require new technology to be able to do that. So with about 87% of these workers across industries saying that they would prefer to be able to work from home or remotely half of the time at least, it's becoming more and more important for companies to figure out ways to enable these workers to have access to technology securely while they're doing their job wherever they are. And that's exactly why we see this as a great opportunity for Windows 365 to enable remote and hybrid work for these part-time and shift workers. So with that, our vision is to give each one of these workers their own personal cloud PC to be productive on during their work hours, while enabling companies at the same time to scale access to computing to this large workforce more economically and with simplified management and setup. So let me talk to you a little bit more about how we are doing that. So as you know today, Windows 365 is in market as a Cloud PC solution for information workers through Windows 365 Enterprise and Windows 365 for Business. And it's usually licensed per user per month, meaning that the company buys for each user a license specifically for them. Now, as we target more part-time and shift work, we are introducing a new licensing model, a new solution that allows companies to specifically empower these employees who need access to their Cloud PC only during their shifts. And the core goal that we have there is allowing the company to scale access to Cloud PCs at a more reduced cost, given the size of this workforce. And so let me kind of introduce you to how that model works and how it compares to the rest of Cloud PC today. So with Windows 365 for shift and part-time work, we try to abide by all of the core pieces and vision for our product that we have so far, which is to make sure that the end user and the admin experience is superb. And with that, there are core pieces that you can expect to see. Now, for the employee, the experience for them is going to be a full Windows experience. They'll have their own persistent Windows desktop, and it will be personalized to them. Now, you can set it up the way you would like to as an organization with the apps and settings that are needed for them to be productive. But core to their experience is also being able to access the Cloud PC wherever they are. So whether they're on their own personal device working from home or they're coming into the office, they can actually access their Cloud PC securely during their work hours. For the organization, the core pieces that we are focused on is allowing you to deploy and manage these Cloud PCs the same exact way you do manage the Cloud PCs today for information workers, as well as your physical devices. So you can do that all through Microsoft Intune with your existing staff that knows exactly how to manage these PCs. And a core piece of some of the capabilities that we're introducing is how to allow you to scale very quickly to increasing in staffing. And so the license model that I'll explain in a bit really focuses on allowing you to add more licenses and more workers very easily. Finally, a very core piece of our product is security. So all organizations today are very focused on making sure that the work for the end user is secure, no matter where they are. And because Cloud PC is contained in its own session and stored in the cloud, you can forget about all of the other challenges and focus on managing the Cloud PCs and reduce security risk for your organization. So let's talk about the license model in more details and what we are talking about here. So first, on the left side, you're going to see dedicated Cloud PC, which is the licensing model that we have today for information workers. And as I said before, when you buy a dedicated Cloud PC, it's one license for one employee, and they get their own persistent desktop. They can access it anytime, 24/7. So it's really well targeted for information workers who need to be able to do the work wherever they are and whatever time they would like to. Now, on the right side is our new model for Cloud PCs for shift work, where we are maintaining everything that you love about Cloud PC in general, being able to have the user being able to have their own persistent desktop. But instead of having one-to-one model of license, we are introducing it as a shared license, where one license can enable up to 3 employees to have each their own Cloud PCs. They each have their own personalized persistent desktop. Now, they can only access it during their work hours. And so that is the core difference. Given that they can only access it during their work hours and we're targeting shift work, the concept here is that when you buy this license, even though it allows up to 3 Cloud PCs, only one Cloud PC can be active at a time. Now, this model really works very well if you have workers working at different times. So one worker starts at 8 a.m., the other starts at 2 p.m., and therefore you don't have to buy a license for each one of these workers. You buy one for the 3 workers. Now, let me explain to you at bigger scale how this actually allows you to scale to your workforce in a very flexible fashion. Here, I've got an example of one of the customers that we have today who has a call center in Manila, and they've hired really quickly 30 workers to provide tech support as a call center for their financial institution. Now, these tech workers can be anywhere. They can be in Singapore, they can be in Manila, it really doesn't matter. The customer in this scenario knows that at a maximum, they have about 10 workers of these 30 workers working at a time. Typically, it's about 8, but maybe some of them run over sometimes. And so they estimate that there's about 10 maximum workers working at a time. And that is the number of work licenses that they would need to purchase in this scenario. So they go and they buy 10 shared licenses of 2 vCPU 8 core, which is one of the sizes that are available for Cloud PC. And within Microsoft Intune, they can go and provision these 30 workers their own Cloud PCs. Next, When these Cloud PCs are set up and the end users can log in, the 8 workers who have their shift can log in. And as soon as they log in, that is when we turn on their Cloud PC on demand so that it can be ready for them. And maybe 2 workers are running over, they can actually also log in later. That is completely fine because the maximum number of concurrent sessions that are allowed in this example are 10. And so the core piece here too, remember, is that even though we are talking about a large number of workers and a set number of licenses, that these licenses are not attached to specific users. And so even if it's different 10 users that show up the next day, that is completely fine. Any of your workers can log in up to the maximum concurrency. And that's a really core piece here that we've heard from a lot of our customers that is necessary because shifts change, workers change their time, and you don't want to be in the business of having to change who logs in and when. From a service perspective, Windows 365 will turn on the Cloud PC at the user logs in. And then the log off is what triggers the release of the license so that another user can log in, essentially. That gave you a general idea of how this model works, but I want to summarize it to you before we jump into the experience of how to administer and access Cloud PCs for shift work. The first step in general is going to be for your organization purchasing. So that is where you're going to be able to save on upfront costs by actually determining the maximum number of workers that you have working at a given time and purchasing that number of licenses that equals that maximum. Once you've purchased those licenses, and they can be of any size, so 2 core, 8 core, 4 core, any supported size today, you can actually move on and then set up the access for these Cloud PCs in Microsoft Intune. So the deployment process is very quick and easy because it's essentially embedded to the workflow that you already have with Windows 65 for Cloud PCs in general. And you can automatically see the licenses that have been purchased and target provisioning up to 3 times those licenses for the number of workers that you have in total. And then finally, once you've set up everything through the admin experience, end user will find a Cloud PC ready for them, available, and they can log into it. And as soon as they start their shift or their workday, they go log in and use their Cloud PC, have their own persistent desktop during that time. And then when they're done for the day, they log off, and that releases the Cloud PC license for the next worker. And they can come back the next day and do the same thing again. Now let's take a look at what does this experience looks like in a demo example that I will be giving to you, where I show you specifically how you can do that from Microsoft Intune and how you can provision Cloud PCs for shift and part-time work easily. Okay, so let me start showing you how the admin experience in Microsoft Intune looks like for deploying and provisioning Cloud PCs for shift and part-time workers. Now, I'm going to walk you through this demo from the eyes of one of our admins, Connie, who just got a call from her organization that they just hired new call center workers. And there's 2 groups of workers, one of which is going to be doing tech support work and is using a very heavy application, so really needs a high compute power Cloud PC, and another tech support center in a completely different geographic location. And her organization has purchased shared licenses so that they can enable these workers. And so she's about to set these Cloud PCs up. So let me show you very quickly how Connie can start. First, she heads over to Microsoft Intune or Microsoft Endpoint Manager and goes to the Windows 365 blade. And that's where she typically manages her Cloud PCs. Now, there's a section called Provisioning Policy. Now, Connie already manages Cloud PCs for dedicated users, full-time workers, and she knows exactly how to manage these PCs. And she's been told that she can provision these Cloud PCs for shift workers exactly the same with a shared license. So she starts by creating the provisioning policy, and she calls it whatever she wants to in this example, and then she actually chooses the license type that she wants to deploy. And this is the core difference that she notices in her example. And so she uses shared instead of dedicated, and then she chooses the join type as Azure AD because she wants to Azure AD join these Cloud PCs, and chooses the Microsoft hosted network, which are all settings she's familiar with and she's set up before for provisioning policy. Now, once she hits next, she also goes through the same steps that she's usually used to with Windows 65 for dedicated use. And she chooses the gallery image of Windows 11. And then she hits next and chooses the English language for the Cloud PCs to be set up with that language. And then finally, she gets to the assignment section. And the assignment section is where she notices some key differences from how she manages her Cloud PCs today that are fairly minor, but are going to allow her to very quickly be able to deploy Cloud PCs for these shift workers and scale up if more workers show up without having to do explicit licensing steps for each one of these workers. And so what she does here is that she's already prepared the groups, and she prepared them as Azure AD groups. She chose the first call center morning shift, and she included all the workers that will be in that call center. And then she also has call center afternoon shift picked out. So she quickly targets to both of these groups. And then she can also, from here directly, choose which Cloud PC sizes she wants to provide to them. And so because she chose the shared license, Windows 365 Service knows to show her available Cloud PCs that are purchased under that license. And so you can see from the dropdown that her organization has purchased 2 vCPU, 4 vCPU, and 8 vCPU. And there is about 100 Cloud PCs available for 2-core, and 4, there's about 54, and for the 8, there's about 6. And so for the first group, she wants to deploy the 8-core because they have this very highly intensive application that they need for their tech support work. And so she chooses that and is able to provide 6 Cloud PCs for the members. And then from here, she can also do the same for the afternoon shift. So she doesn't have to start over. She doesn't have to create another provisioning policy. She can just do it from right here. And she chooses for these workers, or a large number of workers, 18, 2 vCPU, and there's about 100 Cloud PCs available. So she's going to be all set. And then she selects the licenses. And from here, she hits next. And that is the review and create step, which is essentially the last step that she needs to just check that she did everything correctly. And we tell her that we're going to be showing her the list of users who are provided a Cloud PC based on this provisioning policy once this policy is actually complete, which happens after the creation. And so she hits create. And with that, we create the policy, and we automatically starts provisioning Cloud PCs for shift work for these workers because we know that she picked the shared license. And therefore, when she goes to her all Cloud PCs list, as soon as she has actually set this up, she starts seeing that we're provisioning Cloud PCs for these workers, and some of them have already started provisioned. And as soon as something is provisioned, that means that this worker can actually go ahead and log into their Cloud PC. Now, for her management of these Cloud PCs, she can manage them exactly the same. She managed every other Cloud PC and every other physical Windows device via Microsoft Intune, settings, and policies. The core difference is that these Cloud PCs won't be turned on all the time. They will be only turned on when the worker is there, and therefore when the worker is not using it, the Cloud PC will be off. All right, so now that you got a chance to see what the admin experience looks like in Microsoft Intune, I'm excited for you to see what the end user experience will look like. And I will hand off to my colleague Colby, who will show you exactly what that will look like for an end user.
Thanks, Sam, for showing us the Windows 365 for shift work admin experiences. Now I'll be taking us through the Windows 365 for shift work end user experiences, We'll be looking at these end user experiences through the lens of Mona, who's a tech support worker at the call center Sam mentioned before. Now, like many of us, Mona has been working a hybrid work schedule, which means she's been working both at the call center in person and also from home. And she's excited to be able to access her Cloud PC to do her work from both locations. So today, to start her work, Mona navigates to the Windows 365 end user portal. She sees her Cloud PC available for her here. She clicks open in browser, and she's getting ready to start her end user session and get ready right to work. She selects her in-session settings, and she's reminded that she needs to close her browser to sign out and save any of her unsaved changes lest they be lost. Once she does this, it then takes a few minutes for her Cloud PC to get ready. Mona hangs around during those few minutes, and then she's able to authenticate by entering her credentials and sign into her Cloud PC. Now, once sign-in is complete, she's ready to go and get started using her Shift Work Cloud PC. She's reminded once again that she needs to close her browser window to sign out and that any of her unsaved changes will be lost. And then once she closes this reminder, she navigates to the Windows Start menu because she needs to use Excel for her day's work today. Over the course of her shift, she completes all the work necessary to end her shift for the day. And then once she's ready to end her session and go home and be done with her work, she goes ahead and saves her Excel work, closes her Excel window, and then goes ahead and closes her web browser window to say that she's done using her Cloud PC and is ready to leave work. She confirms that she's ready to sign out and that she's saved any of her unsaved changes, and her end user session is ready to be complete, and her Cloud PC is ready to be released for another shift worker at the call center to begin their work. I'm happy to have taken you through the end user experiences for Windows 365 for shift work. As you can see, Mona, as a tech support worker working a shift-based work schedule, is able to really get the best of both worlds here by having immediate access to the device she needs via her Cloud PC for her shift work, and also being able to work wherever she needs, whenever she needs. Thank you so much for watching this demo today, and now I'll hand it back to Sam to close us out.
Thank you, Colby, for this excellent end-user demo. That was fantastic. And now that we got a chance to see both the admin experience and what it looks like in Microsoft Intune, as well as the end-user experience, I'd love to take you through a summary of some of the core benefits that we're targeting to enable with our solution here. The core pieces that we are trying to do here is to really help you provide access to a new set of workers without having to take on a new technology, new cost, new training, any of that. And so we want to enable that, and we also want to elevate the end user experience and provide these shift and part-time workers similar experience to any other worker who is a full-time or information worker. And so they can have their own Cloud PC and experience. And so the core piece here from a benefits perspective for you, if we're going to summarize, is first of all, being able to do more with less. And so the licensing model that we're introducing allows you to save on licensing cost and make the most of your existing Microsoft tools. So you're not actually having to introduce a new technology or a new stack or anything new for your administrators. You're adding new licenses in a way that allows you to save costs because you're only paying for the maximum number of users that are active instead of paying, in this case, for user at a time. Obviously, security is a huge part of what we're trying to deliver on, and it continues being a core component of Windows 365. So having the secure access for these workers, wherever they are, is going to be really, really significant for you, especially as you allow them to potentially work on their own devices or on older device models. And so in this case, you can focus on managing your Windows 365 endpoint and allow them to access from wherever, and we take care of the security for you, as security is a very core component for us in our product. And the third thing is the scalability piece. Obviously, the workforce that we're targeting here is very elastic. It changes a lot. You may have some workers that are hired just during the holidays. And it encompasses a lot of different types of scenarios. It could be someone who's working in a contact center on doing tech support. It could be someone who's doing customer service for a hotel chain. It could be someone who is a retail manager working certain times from the office and certain times from different retail locations. Whatever it is, the key piece here is that workforce is changing. And so the license model that we've introduced and the provisioning process is very elastic and scalable because you don't have to create a license per user attachment. You're just buying these entitlements. And then if you have new users, you only go back to the provisioning experience and target to a new set of users. And these users will get their own Cloud PC. And automatically, Windows 365 will deprovision the other users that you don't want. And so all of that is really very scalable for your workforce. And then finally, I think one of the most core pieces here is the simplified management. And so you saw in the admin experience that you're able to deploy the same exact way you're able to deploy Cloud PCs today. And that is exactly the same way you manage your physical PCs. So your staff that is using Microsoft Intune to manage Windows devices can go ahead and start managing extra Cloud PCs without having to hire new staff or create diversion in tech in terms of how you enable these workers. Primarily because we're providing each one of them with a persistent desktop that can be enabled for them while they're working. And so you don't have to deal with potentially the challenges that comes with adopting different technologies that have compatibility or app compatibility testing or challenges. So you can reach the same conclusion. So these are the four core things that we're targeting as tenants for us to enable you from a benefits perspective. And I'll close by saying this. We're very aware that these workers have various needs across many industries. And so we think of our entry to this space as just a start. We want to invest in solutions that will allow you to actually provide these workers with the best experience and increase their retention in your organizations, which is a core thing that many organizations are targeting to do right now for these types of workers, as well as provide them with the ability to be more productive. And so from an investment perspective, we see this as just a first step. And part of what we're doing today with this session and with our work in this space is that we're trying to learn what you need, what are your priorities, so we can continue developing the roadmap for these scenarios and enabling unique experiences. And so with that, I'll end here and I'll thank you for joining me and Colby in this session. I hope this was valuable and helpful and look forward to hearing from you and hearing your questions. Thank you very much.